you decided to move to Florida. For what reason?
Well, in Calgary is very cold, and we had a good life there. The people are more slow and laid back, and if I don't do it today, I do it tomorrow.
Kim ich nicht heim, kim ich morgen.
Yeah, and they're very nice. They live all comfortable, and they have a beautiful synagogue, and they always believe that the cantor and the rabbi, they have to live comfortable
Oh.
too.
How does it sound? Today is June 7th, 1995. The survivor to be interviewed is Pearl Lang. The interviewer is Chaim Rassad. We are in Coconut Creek in Florida, and the language to be spoken will be English. This is tape number 1. Today is June 7th, 1995. I am Chaim Rassad, the interviewer, and I am interviewing Pearl Lang in Coconut Creek, Florida, and the spoken language will be English. Good morning, Pearl.
Good morning.
Let's begin by you telling me something about yourself. When were you born and where were you born?
I was born in April the 10th, 1923, in Lodz, Poland.
All right, tell me something about your family, about your brothers and your sisters and your mother and father.
We were 7 children, 5 girls and 2 boys. My oldest sister was named Chaya, and she was a very bright girl. She used to go speak in the public. She was very good in school, and a person who always studied and always went to school. In the summer and the winter, she didn't look for a vacation. And we used to say home, she wants to go to school because she doesn't want to make her own bed. And she was beautiful. And my oldest son,
Older brother.
older brother, was tall and went to yeshiva,
His name was
Israel.
Yisrael.
Yeah. And I loved him very much because nobody could say anything of his sister and of my friends. You know, I went to a public school, and it was in Poland. When it was snow outside, he had to come and pick me up to take me home because they would beat me up and throw the snow and say, you know, dirty Jew and things like that. And he was just like, always, nobody, if he came out to pick me up, nobody dared to say something because he was tall and always stand up, you know. He is Jewish, but he wouldn't let anybody, you know. And the third one was I born, and I was the shortest and the quiet one, and always listened, always sat home and embroidered things and made pictures and listened to whatever Daddy said and whatever Mommy said. I was there. And then I had a younger brother, Chaim. He was already a different type than my older brother. Chaim would, you know, always pick on the girls. We were 5 in the house, and we were just scared for him. Yeah. And Chaim said everything went because and then I had a sister, Ruchele, and she was just a doll, loved to play in the backyard, and hopscotch, and had a lot of friends, and sang, and full of life. She looked a lot like me, because my mother had blue eyes and dark hair, and so did the boys, but the girls looked more like my father, except my older sister. We had those mousy color hair and brown eyes, and but she was so much, Rochelle was so much full of life, and a lot surrounded with a lot of friends. And then I had a sister, Sorella. She too, she was my darling. I got along with her so nice. And I was always, my mother helped out in the business, and we had a girl home, a Polish, but I was always taking care of her. And then we had one, Esther. She was the baby of the family, too, a little girl, but she loved to dance and she loved to sing, and full of life. And that's why every time I think of those children, they really didn't have the chance to grow up and to develop the people what they would have been. Then it's very hard to swallow it.
Tell me, what did your father do for a living?
He had a textile factory, and we all helped after work, after school, or on a Sunday. He closed the factory, and we went in all helped, like you have to put in the thread to the things. And he had a few workers too. Not very rich, but we were very comfortable. And we had a loving family, those beautiful holidays, and the family. All my parents' life was surrounded about the children. We were the life.
Tell me something about the religious part of your family, how you observe the holidays and Shabbos.
Well, my father came from a rich family, and I had grandparents yet, not in the war, that died before. And when I would come to visit them, there was a big room with those big all kind of Jewish people, and he had one melody what he always sang, but very cold people. The religion meant everything, but the the grandkids, you walked in, he didn't even I had a look on us, and I wasn't so. But then my mother had parents too, but they were just my favorite. They bought me the first doll, and they had a little grocery store in a little town. They had chickens, and they had geese, and she used to take from every child a grandchild out there, and we were there a whole summer, and we washed our feet outside in a big, they had a big, but the sweetest, we loved those grandparents, and I used to go with her in the garden, pick strawberries, and the end before Yontif, before the holidays. She would buy us, each one, a pair of shoes and an outfit for Yontif. And they were not really rich, but just wonderful people. And how my mother used to tell us the story, how they met, that my father came from you know, they had a factory, his father. Then he was like a salesman, going out to the little towns to sell the good. And when he came in and he saw my mother, and she was beautiful. He fell in love with her. And when my father came back, and he said to his father, he met a girl, and who is she? And then my grandfather was very upset. He went there and he said his son is not going to marry a girl from a little country, you know. But in those times yet, my father was very stubborn, and this was it. They married, and my grandfather didn't come to the wedding because he wasn't from the yichus, you know, from the good stock.
From the rich people.
From the rich people.
His laws.
Yeah, in those times, yeah. But when he got old and when my Bobby passed on, he lived with her. And all the children, he liked her the best because she was such a doll, such a wonderful person.
So you had a wonderful childhood. You had
I had a
beautiful
wonderful childhood, and we had every holiday. It was beautiful. It kept me, you know, funny that it kept me alive in the concentration camps. Remembering. I was already put down in Flugplatz in a little for the night. Should I tell you why this happened?
We'll get to that in a moment. I'd like to come to the part when the Germans came, and you told me yesterday your recollections of what happened to your entire family are a little cloudy. But as best as you can, tell me what you remember happened to your family when the Germans came. You had to leave. You did something.
Yes.
Tell me about
when the Germans came into Poland, and Lodz had a lot of German people living there. The first thing, of course, we couldn't go to school because Jews don't need any education. They took the young girls, and we had to go. They threw out the Jews, of course, from their apartments, and we used to have to go and clean it up. Every day I lived in a apartment house, like there were 300 families lived there, like Winmore, you know, one at the other side. And they would bring us back in the evening. We worked through the day, and every day they came with a truck, and the Jewish police, you know, they always had to help him to come, the Germans with the Jewish police. And it took for months like that. It was a lot of 200,000 Jews lived in Lodz. Till one day, my mother walked down with me the steps. She spoke to this Jewish policeman. She walked down with me with the steps, and she was crying, and she was hugging me, and she was kissing me. Being 16 years old, I was embarrassed. What was mother carrying up, and you know what? Then I said, "What are you crying? I'm going to be back in a few hours." I worked like that for already for a few months. But little did I know that was my last mother's kiss. I never saw her again.
So you went out to clean, and your family disappeared when you came back?
No, I never came back.
You never came. What happened to you?
They took us to a prison, the whole group of girls one day, and the other ones too, with hard criminals. I was a child who never slept in anybody's house. We were very protected, you know, European people. You didn't just get off with some place they should know where you are or what you're doing. And from there, upon the prison. The, the broaden, feathers, where you separate feathers to make pillows. This is what we had to do there. They brought in big bags of feathers, and we were sitting in separate. From there, they took me to Majdanek.
All right, so you found out later on what happened to your mother and your father and your brothers and your sisters. Tell me what you found out later on.
Later, after the war,
Yeah.
I came back to Lodge, after I was liberated, thinking I survived. Maybe they did too. But when I came, the caretaker kneeled down and he crossed himself and he said to me, I came from the other world, because nobody came yet back to
Survived.
who survived. It was months, and I went through all the concentration camps, and I survived. And I came back, when I came back to Poland, no education and no money, and nobody there waited for me, didn't have where to go and where.
But you found out what happened to your family. Tell me what happened.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not
Okay.
yet. It took years later. I found out that somebody told me that they left with they took him with my parents, and they went to Częstochowa. There was a concentration camp, and this person escaped. From there, they took him to Treblinka. The whole family. My brothers didn't want to leave my parents. They said, the parents are older. When they were 42, they're 18 or 20, then the parents are old already, and they're going to stay with
But they
the
could have
parents.
left.
They could have left to Russia or something, but they didn't. They
They
stayed by. And the little girls were yet little, and they went. My mother, being such a protective mother, they perished, all of them.
So they all went to Treblinka.
Yeah.
Now there's one sister that you wanted to tell me about Chaya.
Yes,
Chaya.
Chaya. She was married.
Yeah. Chaya Rosenzweig.
Yeah, she was married, and when the war came, she came into the house, and she lived in Lodz. Her husband was a four-year, made four coats and things. She came and she left the keys on the table, and she said, Perala, you look after my house. And I'm leaving, I'm going to Russia. Because the youth, tried to, it was already in the war, and they were cutting the Jews off the beards and all the things. And she didn't know what I should take care of the house. Her house right away, we couldn't go in there in the street where she lived. They were already occupied by the Germans. We got one letter from her that she is not Treblinska, in Russia, Treblinska Blaszcz, whatever. And she bore a little girl, and the girl's name was Mariam Ruchala, after this Bobby, what we loved her so much. Then when I arrived back, and I saw that nobody came back, because I knew that they would. My only hope was she's going to come back. She went to Russia, and she has already a baby, and she was so outgoing. I would have never think that something could happen to her. She had already education, she was married, and full of life, and she was my only hope. web, and we start to write letters to Russia. But to Russia, you could talk like to
To a wall.
people who lived in Russia, and, and she never heard from her. She never returned. And then I was worried. We even tried to find out. Yeah, that's all what I knew, that it was Chelabinska Black, that this little baby is there someplace, and she doesn't know that
She has family.
she has family.
But you never found her.
Never found her.
Right.
She was already a grown-up woman,
All right, let's go back now to Majdanek. You were finally taken to Majdanek. What happened at Majdanek?
In Majdanek, they brought in, there wasn't then preachers, they didn't have bunks. They have big buildings. There was nothing there. Every transport, when I arrived there, they took away the clothes, and they told us to put the shoes together and everything, just to walk around and round and round. And there was the selection, to the right and to the left and to the right and to the left. We never knew what's happening here. But we just start to understand that the one who took away yesterday, we never saw him again. And after the selection, I got this big striped dress, and you felt so dehumanized. Here I am, a young girl, and they took everything from me away. And you got a feel, at least I got a feeling that this dress smells from death, that who knows how many people had wore the dress, and it just smells like that. In the cut of our hair. We even didn't recognize each other, woman that's yet a young, I had long hair, braided and things in the back, like I ate, made. We didn't even, and they so start to bring, every day there was another selection. From there, they took us, I think it was a part of Majdanek, to Flugplatz. And this was the time when they built the crematoriums. While I was there, we used to get a big stone and have to make little pebbles from it and knock it. And I have here a few, and I think the girl who worked with me with the hammer, and we put those pebbles on the streets, because it's a very muddy place to build. This was the time when they built the crematoriums.
So you helped in the building?
I helped. And from there, I don't know, for luck, they took me to a Flugplatz. In Flugplatz, there wasn't any crematoriums. There was a big place where there were rails where trains came in, with packages inside, with clothes.
Tell me about the packages and the clothes and what you found there.
Yeah, and bundles in it. And
these were belongings to Jews.
To Jews, you found tefillin, and you found a candlestick, and you found Jewish.
What did you do with this? What were you supposed to do?
We unloaded, and they had big, like, stone tree. It was
rooms?
No, it was like bunks. Because this place, before the war, was Flugplatz in Germany, and it means aeroplane, where the aeroplane hangars, the small ones. in there they had long tables. We brought in those packages and had to sort it. The money, there was a big valise standing in the assessment, were watching it, the money to throw in there. And shirts, 12 in a package to tie down, and pants, 12 in a package to tie down, and we cleaned the thing, and terrible things really
So
happened.
you saw the
to
lives of people in front of you, in the
front.
clothing,
Then,
in the property.
we know already what's
Yeah.
happening there. I didn't know where they went or where they took my family, but so that's the life. I know that before, when the war came out, my father took in the house in a guy who makes shoes, a shoemaker, and you know, in Poland you didn't keep money in the bank, then they had gold pieces,
Right.
Russian and American, and the shoemaker had to take off the heel, and there they put it in all the children. He would put in some money, and my mother and father kissed us and said, "You save your life with it." But when I got to the camp, they took my shoes away. You know, it wasn't a thing. And one day I pulled out a blanket, and I always liked to go in the train to unload because it was very cold in Poland. It's very cold winters. And when I pulled out, a human head fell out, and I started to screech and there were all the assessment there around, and they were laughing. It was so funny to them, and they kicked the skeleton head. And how could you? It was so hard to live with it, to see, you know, what was going on.
And through all this, you had a dream in Flossburg. Tell me about the dream.
I was very close to my father, and we slept 5 girls on a bunk. Then came one day, and I was so tired, and then I fell asleep. And when one girl had to turn, you know, all of them would. And they listened to a conversation. I dreamt my father came to me. He said, "You can't stay here. You gotta run away for everything. Whatever it happens, you gotta run away." And, you know, I took it light. I didn't even, and they tell me the story. And in this camp, in the Flugplatz, a week or two, they used to come and count 300, 400, 200, sometimes a smaller amount to Majdanek. Because we find out when the Wachman, you know, the guys who came back, we asked, "Where did you take the people?" They said, "To Majdanek."
Okay, we'll stop here for now. June 7th, 1995, the survivor is Pearl Lang. This is tape 2. All right, let's continue with your experiences at Flossburg, at Flugplatz.
At Flugplatz. You know, one day, it was on a Sunday, and we had to stay appel outside.
The roll call.
Roll call. and it was so cold, and I figured, he said he needs a few girls to unload a wagon with shoes. Then yeah, I'm going to work, I'm going to unload, then I don't feel so cold, and it will pass faster. And I volunteered to go down. We were getting like one burlap sack, put in the shoes from the wagon, and they had a big shed. We will just put it down there and go back and go back. 4 hours. It got already dark outside, and the other girls were already going back to the bunk. They were letting go, and the assessment who worked with us, his name was Winkler, and he was the worst. He killed many girls there in the camp. And in this camp, in the Flugplatz, there was a lot of hanging there too. Then he let those other girls down, and he said, I was so lucky I should be left. Then he took me on this shed in, and I should pick up my coat, and he beat me with it. He was carrying like a whip, and after a while, I just didn't feel anymore. He left me there. It was winter, and I don't know how long I was there, but I crawled out, I all just slide off, and there was a lot of ice and snow on it, and I was laying there, and my body, I couldn't move, and I was so heavy. But I always say that the snow saved my life for a long time then. And all my 4, I came to the block when we slept, and the girls were sure that I am not alive anymore. Because before I was still conscious, I looked at him, and around his mouth was like white schaum, how you say a schaum?
Saliva.
Yeah. Then I thanked to God that he saved my life again. And I had typhus there, where the girls kept, if you stayed in the block, they took you away. Then the girls were holding me up. And when we got to the place where we were sorting, they put me on the floor. They put some clothes and covered me up that they shouldn't see that there's somebody. And when we had to go home, and they counted us, they just holded me up there. And I had fever, and I didn't have a little water to drink, nothing, with typhus, but I survived it too.
But your father told you to leave.
Yes, my father then, it was such a terrible, he said, you just leave, you can't stay.
Now, how did you leave? That's
well,
curious.
You know, when they came to take, like they had every few weeks, they took a group of people away, but they counted, and everybody knows that those people who leave, they never come back, that they go to Majdanek. Majdanek, by then, they had already crematoriums.
Yeah.
That like somebody would push me. I walked out myself, and I joined the group.
This group was going where?
To Majdanek? We didn't.
You didn't know?
We didn't know.
Yeah,
but it's just, the couple, you know, they had a Jewish couple. She was a German girl. She liked me because I never complained, whatever it was, whatever she asked me to do, I was there. She came over and she says to me in Polish, "Co ty robisz? Ty wiesz, gdzie to oni idą. Why do you get out? You know where they're taking the rest of the people." And she hit me with with a whip to show the assessment that, you know,
Yeah.
what is she going out, that she has, she doesn't let me. But I went out again and just stayed, and I went with the others. There were 40 women with us, and they put us in a big truck, and they let us stay near the gate a whole day. And we knew by then that it's something they're going to take us. We told, because we heard that people that take him to the woods and
Yeah.
they shoot him there. Then we were staying on this truck, and we were huddled to one the other, and we said Vide, you know. I knew I come from a religious
You said Vide,
home.
yeah.
That before that, you say
I
a
know.
prayer.
But
And
this truck took you where?
well, we passed by Majdanek with a truck,
Yeah.
and we said, well, this is probably too much for us too. They will take us to the woods. And I had always I was afraid that when my time comes to die, I shouldn't be left just laying there, that animals should, you know. Then we but how life wanted to, that drove with us probably a whole night cold, and we came to a small town, Milejev. There was a factory of marmalade, and people from town, the Polish people, used to work there. They came in the morning to work, and they went back. And it was heaven already, because the girls from the town, they brought us a piece of bread, like from the farmers, wherever there were people, and we have already some jam, apples and carrots.
Plenty of jam.
Yeah.
This is in 1941, wasn't
Yeah.
this? Yeah. Now, what's important is that this dream that your father had that told you to leave,
Yeah.
the important factor is what happened in 1941 and 42, around that time, the mass murders that occurred,
Yeah.
that he saved you from. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
What happened with those mass murders? That happened at Flugplatz.
When we were there in Milejev, where we had the thing, the girls from town came in, and they said, you know what? The camp where you were, they were all killed. It was hard to believe, you know, that there were thousands and thousands. There were, I think there were 18,000
In Flugplatz.
in
And they destroyed the whole camp.
the whole camp.
And
the Majdanek.
And the dream that you had of your father told you to leave
To
there.
leave there.
It's a miracle.
And when we were already scared, we were feeling they will come for us too. You know, because when we were there in the Marmalade, we thought they will forget about us. We will live through the war in that town. They came with a truck, and they said they're taking us away. And they took us to Travniki. And on the truck, we had a Ukrainian soldier who watched us, and they were worse than the Germans. And I always like to sit, in the front, because I figure if I have to be shot, I want to be the first one. I don't want to see other ones should be before me. And I asked him, where are you taking us? He said, you better give me everything what you have, because you're going now to a camp, Travniki, and everybody's killed there. And when you arrive, there's somebody stays with a machine gun and he will kill you too. Then we thought, well, maybe he just wants the money. Then he tells us that. But miles before we arrived, they were smelling already.
Smelling what?
Burning flesh. And when he drove in this camp, they were laying dead people all over, feet, hands, separate. And in the evening, they put us into a bunk. And in the evening, they left a day before. This was where they killed. I have here all the.
And this was in 1942.
Yeah, yeah. All the camps. They killed in Majdanek, in Konatov, in Travniki.
So the bodies were piled up and they were just burning the
bodies?
bodies?
A day before they had to dig ditches.
Right.
And they shot them into the one on top of the other. They left 120 people in Travniki from the families. And they had to pull out the dead bodies and put it on it was a fire burning, like a bonfire.
A big bonfire, right. And they burned the bodies in the bonfire.
Human flesh, it burns just like wood, yet a big fire. And we
you had to clean up?
No, we had to do it too.
Right.
You know, they schlepped out from the ditches and we had to schlep them to the fire. And people who they found, they were hiding, they brought to the fire. They had to undress and they shot them right in the burning.
They threw them into the fire.
Yeah, and every night when we came back to the bunk, there were the men and we were in the same bunks. They said Kaddish. They recognized a father, a mother, a loved one when they pulled them out of the ditches.
Now, when you were in Travniki, you had to start taking the buildings apart.
Yes.
You were disassembling all the buildings.
Yes.
And you found something there.
Yes.
Tell
When
me about that.
I worked and I pulled out a blanket. We had, before we took the buildings apart, we had to take out all the things what they had there. The people were taking to be shot, then they couldn't take anything.
They
and
left.
there was plenty. Those were the most people there in Travniki, Warsaw people from Warsaw. Then we had to pull out everything under the bridge, sort it, make the bundles. And as I pulled out a blanket, something was rattling. Then I thought it's a rat or something. And I got scared. I moved away from it. But I heard the rattling in my head, like somebody's just, breathing. Then I went back. And as I had a good look, I saw there's a child. And I took him out. And I picked him up. And I went to the assessment. And I said to him, let me take him to the barracks with me, to the bunks, where we are. And even the head fell up to the side, and he was like a shriveled prune, this child. Even this assessment, maybe he had kids there home, he said to me, good, well, as long as you will live, he will live too. And I understood that he means you're not going to live too long, and he will not either. Then I asked him he should send a soldier with me, because when on top they were sitting watching us, the soldiers, on those, how do you call,
watchtowers.
Watchtowers. Then he gave me And when we brought in this child, we were 40 women there. We didn't have anything. He had even lice on his eyes.
Mm.
We didn't have, and he slept with me, and he wedded, and but I just dreamt that someday, we will live through, and he's going to be mine. And I was a kid myself,
Yeah.
and I adopted him.
What happened to him, do you know?
Yes, in April the 10th, that was my birthday. And the girls had the portion of the bread. We with them put some jam, and we were going to celebrate my birthday before we go. They're going to. And the assessment came in, the one from outside, and he said he got a befail, that he has to take away Mareczek. I had already lost everybody, but I thought I never gonna survive that. This little boy was a blonde little boy, and he told me he lived in Warsaw, in the way they killed his mother. And he came here to the camp with his father.
His father hid him before he went.
He went. He hid him there. And when they told me they're taking him away, I just thought I'm never going to make him. But what am I going to cry? The child. And he kept on saying, Perelka, where do they going to take me? I don't want to go. I want to be with you. Then I said, Mareczek, you're now a big boy. You're going to go to school. And you're going to learn how to read and write, just to make easy his.
Mm-hmm.
And then with his big blue eyes, he took me around and he said, the first word what I'm going to learn to write is going to be Perelka. And to put up a face, I had to give him a smile and a kiss, and they took him away the same day. The guy, this assessment who came in, I said to him, when I pulled out something from the bunk, I found some gold, and if you're going to tell me where you took him, when you come back, you're going to get it. And he came back, he told me he took him to Majdanek. Right to the crematorium.
So he died.
He died, the little boy. And what kind of, children in the war, it's just unbelievable how smart they were. He said he was 5, but he was so understanding.
He was 5?
Yeah, he was so understanding. He told me the way he was in the Warsaw ghetto, how his father went to work and his mother was home with him. Then the SS were knocking in the door in the hall. They lived in an apartment. And his mother fast hid him under the mattress. They came in, they shot his mother, and he crawled out from under this mattress where she hid him. He was with his mother, with his dead mother, till his father came. And then this is the way his father brought him to Treblinka.
So he survived all of this, and then he finally died at Treblinka. This was Mark Zemmel?
Yeah.
Mark Zemmel, Z-E-M-E-L.
Yeah.
All right, then
not
yeah.
in Treblinka. He died in where did they took us from?
Bergen-Belsen? You said he died in Majdanek.
Yeah, they took him to the Majdanek. Yeah.
All right, then you left Majdanek. You had a death march from Majdanek to Auschwitz.
To Auschwitz.
Tell me about that.
Oh, they took us. We left. They took us from Majdanek.
That was in what, 1940?
Already, it was already in 40. When they took us from Majdanek, It was already in 43 or 44.
44.
44.
44, I think, yes.
And put us on the flat, on the train and the platform.
Right.
And they were shooting. Whoever fell down, fell down. This train went on. And then they took us off from this train, and we marched.
You marched.
Day, night,
Cold.
hungry. We had to push the wagon, what the soldiers, they had their goods, their
Right.
things, their bread and their things.
How did you survive on this march? I mean, you couldn't, there was
This-
nothing to eat, nothing
this-
to drink?
They stopped with us at night or on the way, like in a side where there were grass and things. For mine, Bobby, what I loved so much, she lived in a small town. And in the farm where they had there were sour leaves.
Sour leaves,
They grow like, and Bobby used to make a borscht from it.
That's
And
job.
chaff. And I saw those leaves, and I lived on those leaves.
It's a good thing you visited your Bobby. You wouldn't have known about the leaves.
She saved my life. And the day she died, before the war, I slept with her for 7 years. Bobby was across from us in an apartment. And one day she said to me, go in and tell mother that I am very sick. She should call the other children. And the tachrichem are in the drawl there. I didn't know what's tachrichem by then. But when I said it to mother, she knew. Then when I hear somebody's coming, it's going on so much, I was sitting in a little chair near her bed. I mean, I was so close to her and cry. And she said, Perala, what are you crying? A dead grandma could help more than it. Sometimes she says, a dead grandma could help more than a live one.
Wow.
Then I believe so strong that that's not the end, that my grandma still saved my life with her chaff and the soup what she cooked, and how she made sure to tell me that a dead grandma could help more than.
And you
Fine.
survived the march.
Yeah, I survived. They used to, it was already 44. It was the end of the war. Then the Germans themselves, in big limousines, were going to in the woods. They didn't want to go to the front, I guess.
Sure, they were escaping.
Yeah, then they would see. We were. We left Majdanek. We were there about 500. Then on the way, we lost so many. He would say, "Was tust du mit dem Haufen? Na, mach sie doch kaputt." It meant, where you taking the shit,
Yeah.
Take him to the woods and share
shoot
them.
'em.
But they didn't, because they wanted to hold on to us. Otherwise, if they
They killed you.
they killed me, they have to go to the front.
So you were their safety package. As long as they
Yeah.
had you to take care of, they stayed where they were.
Yeah, and we arrived to
To Birkenau.
Birkenau at night. Hold on to each other. We passed by. There was burning a fire in a ditch, in a ditch, and we said, "This is it. Hold on to each other's hand." But they took us into a big room, a big bunk in
In Birkenau.
Birkenau.
You didn't stay there very long, did you?
Not
Birkenau.
not too much, not too long.
They moved you from Birkenau, they moved you on to
We went
Bergen-Belsen.
to Auschwitz, you know,
Auschwitz.
this way
Yeah.
from Birkenau to Auschwitz, and then they took us to what did you say?
Bergen-Belsen.
To Bergen-Belsen.
So they kept you on the move. You moved from one place
In
to another.
Bergen-Belsen, there was a place really, they didn't have a crematorium. There was just a place where people, the German people came and they took workers.
Work details, right.
Workers
The
to
civilian companies came and
Yeah.
they picked out people to work for them.
private take, they had cheap work.
That cheap labor.
Yeah, cheap
So they
work.
came in and they took out people to do work, and
Yeah.
they
And
fed
we-
you halfway decently at that time. They gave you something to eat. At least?
There where we were in Bergen-Belsen
Yeah.
was a terrible camp. They didn't feed us. They used to bring in a big things with food. It was better than any other place.
Oh, I thought when you worked on a detail, the people you worked for fed you, but they didn't feed you.
No,
You
this
came back to the camp,
we
and they
can-
didn't feed you.
Yeah, this wasn't.
See, because I thought if the civilian people
this
hired you,
this was
they would
already.
feed you,
Yeah, this
but they
was
didn't.
no. This was already that they picked us in Bergen, you know, from Bergen-Belsen, and they took us to Aschersleben.
Yeah. And what happened in
see-
Aschersleben?
And Aschersleben was a factory of airplanes.
Airplanes.
And there where my meister, you know, we used to get already food from the
But the Meister was not an SS, he was a civilian.
no, he was a civilian.
And he was nicer to you than the
He
others.
was nice. He used to tell me how much money they earn, you know, when they and we made those little windows where they throw the bombs.
Oh, where the turret is.
Yeah, and you know, when you made a mistake, then the Meister went around and he made a cross. It meant to take out those little,
But the bolts.
yeah, the bolt, and then became a bigger hole. Then you had to look for bolts, and we were just, you know,
What do you know from making bolts and holes?
yeah, and the bores was so heavy, and we were so, you know, everything was shaking with it. But many times, you know, he made the cross, and he went away, and I knew that when we start with the bores, I just wiped it off.
You left it the way it was.
He came around and he said, "It's fine."
Oh, then he didn't know that
Oh,
much.
he didn't. He didn't know.
And you had a friend there, Eva.
Yeah, Eva.
Eva Tusk.
Yeah, and she, the whole way through, to this death march, I had big blisters on my feet. And at night, they used to stop with us in big farms, you know. Then on the farm would be a truck with those little potatoes for the pigs or whatever. She would go out at night, risk her life, and tear out a piece of her clothes, and she would put to those blisters on my feet. And she was carrying me. She was carrying me.
She was a good friend, and she survived with you.
She survived. And, you know, one day I knew, you know, I said, "You let me down. You have a little bit strength. Keep it, because I will not survive. You will." And then, of course, she said, "No, I feel as long we together, we lived through the war, that I bid her here on her thing." And she still had
A mark?
a mark because I wanted, but she didn't give up on me.
Okay.
And she was a real friend.
Okay. Bye. June 7th, 1995. The survivor is Pearl Lang. This is tape 3. I'd like you to tell me a little more about your friend Eva Tusk.
Yeah.
Just a little bit more about her.
She was such a wonderful person. She married, and had a lovely husband and a very religious man, and the children. She didn't have any girls. She had 3 sons, where she always wanted. And she loved Sarah, you know. This was hers too, you know. Hers. My child was hers too. And then she came to the United States, graduate high school, graduate at college. Just a very bright girl, always with a book and always reading.
And they lived in New York.
And they lived in New York. And she worked. You know, we came, it wasn't just, when we came to the United States, it wasn't the gold country, you know. And then she got very sick. She had a tumor in her brain, and she was in a coma for months. And I used to go there for weeks, hold her hand and feed her. The end.
But this was a good friend.
Oh, she was a friend.
Right, you left Aschersleben and you wound up in Theresienstadt.
Yeah.
What happened in Theresienstadt when you were there?
Well, in
It was 1945 already.
Yeah, in Theresienstadt was a very, we were a very short time. They brought us down, they put us on the top, and we were waiting. They fed us a little bit, but by then we knew that when we left Majdanek in 44, that we saw Lublin was burning in fire. We heard shooting, and then the march. And, you know, on the way with the march, they would put us in a train and lock the doors, and they were running in the fields, the Germans too, you know, they didn't care. And you know, in Europe, I don't know, they have like little baskets on top to put in the luggage. I climbed up there in this basket. Didn't go down the whole time. And when they were bombing, I prayed I should be killed by not by a German.
By an Allied bomb. And you were finally liberated by the Russians.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
We were up there and somebody yelled, "We are free." And we didn't believe, but we just flew down the steps, you know, that, and we saw a big tank, and Russian soldiers were there, and we kissed them, and we kissed their boots, and we danced the horror around around the soldiers and around them.
But they didn't have food for you. They had nothing for you to eat.
They didn't. They said to us, "Rabiata, you know, just let us go."
They were chasing the Germans.
Yeah, there were other people who has to be free. They were driving a big tank, an American tank too.
The Russians were driving American tanks.
Sure.
Oh.
Says USA.
Said U.S. That big star on it, the white star.
You see, the Russians didn't have the tanks what they really well needed, but the Americans.
So you were finally freed.
We were finally free.
All right, tell me how you met a fellow called Morris Lang. How did you meet Morris Lang?
We didn't. There was typhus in the city, where we lived in Theresienstadt, and there was nothing to eat because they locked up the camp. they were afraid it shouldn't spread to
Right,
the
typhus,
soldiers.
Right.
And the Germans weren't there anymore. And we were just dying from hunger. Then somebody came in, he says, 3 miles from here, there is a camp where men are there. We didn't see men for all those years, you know, they kept away.
Yeah.
Then I was the first one to go out, and I ran. And came there, I looked through a little window, and there were men there and a lot of potatoes. A big, and believe me, if I seen today diamonds, so many, I wouldn't be so excited like those potatoes. And there was a young man, and he says, "Where are you?" I said, "From lodge." And I said, "We are here with," we were by then, we were 10, just left, you know. And there are other girls there too. And he said, "From where?" And then I told him where. He said, "My God, my sister lived there, and she was married to somebody." And then I said, "You come with me." I took off my slip and I tied it down. I put some potatoes. Didn't have where to cook it, but we went upstairs. And we ate it raw, without salt, without. Then he came up and he talked to those girls. They were married. They were a cousin, far family. In Maris, by that time, he was already an interpreter. You know, he didn't stay still. Then a few days later, food came into the camp, and we were able to go out. And then those mighty Germans were driving on a horse and buggy and a wagon. And there were 2 little girls there from camp. They said, "Halt, alle runter. You all go down." This is what they did to us. You should see. Hände off the hand, and they picked up their arms. If they would have looked at us crooked, we would have run away, you know, coming for the thing. But they were mighty when they had, you know, when they knew the Germans are on the horse, that they could say. And I remember when I took once down from the train, from this horse and wagon, there was a little valise in it, and we took it from them. And when I opened the valise, there were money, full of money, marks.
Yeah, they weren't worth much.
But I didn't know. You know, I grew up in a very protective house. We knew that we had enough food, clothes. When my father brought home rolled up big pieces of material, and they were left, and dressmakers came in and made. Then I wasn't in the camp. You were stepping on gold, diamonds. You couldn't buy anything. The money didn't really count. And in Czechoslovakia, there's a big river goes through. Then I stayed on the thing and threw in the money, and it was just floating away. And I said, "Look, their money." A few weeks later, this money was worth really a lot of money. I should have held it. But it didn't mean then to me. In the Russian, when we were already came in, one soldier somebody brought in a German, and we were all by him and by the German around, and the Russian soldier came in, and he said, "Who is he?" And we said to him, "That's a German." Took out a little knife and cut off his ear. And I was on the floor. Then, you know, I couldn't see blood, and I couldn't see those things. It was still it still lived with me. I wasn't.
Tell me more about Morris. You saw
Well,
him for a while.
I saw him for a while, and he was already a big macher, and he decided he's going to. And we couldn't get out of the camp. We had to have
Permit.
a permit. Then he decided he's going to take those two sisters out of the camp to leave, to go back to Poland. But we had, in those dark hours, through Travniki and this, we always promised ourselves that we're going to leave together. We live through, we leave the camps together. Then they said, no, if you want to take us, you have to take all of us. Then he made papers for us, and we traveled. And right after the war, you know, any train took us up, picked us up. You didn't need any money, and everybody, a truck. We went, and Maris lives in Lublin, and I was in Lodz. Then he took the girls, and he went to his town where he was born. And I was left with Eva in Lodz. We didn't have, it was such a, it was a terrible thing. First of all, to justify your life. Why am I here? Why not the other one? No, why not Chai, and why not Srulik, why not those little girls, and I'm here? Didn't have the proper education, didn't have a penny, nobody was there. I didn't see anybody who knew me before the war. When I came back to Lodz,
You were married then? You married Morris in 1945?
Yeah.
Right after the war?
Yeah, but I wasn't yet married.
Oh, you didn't marry him yet?
He went back to his town.
On his own, right.
On his own. And I stayed in Lodz. I thought, you know, somebody will maybe come back. I had a friend who on the way escaped, and we thought we shot her, that she shot. And when he came to his town, she had already married a year before, in 44, because Lublin, you see, was liberated in 44. And then he came there, and he said, you know, he brought this, his father family there, his sister, and Perelka and Eva, they left in Lodz. She says, my God, Perelka is alive. You better go back and bring her back. Then I came with Maris back to his town, and we fell in love.
And you got married?
But he had then a brother yet.
Yeah.
Then the brother said to him, you know, my father and mother are not alive, and I could see you love you, and you're never going to find a girl like that. He said, I made a date and you're getting married. Maris wasn't even home. He went to Czechoslovakia back to get some clothes and to sell it.
Right.
Then I went to the train. I said, you know what? Sholem has a date when you're going to get married. He says, he made a date for myself, for me.
His brother made a date for you.
Yeah, and we got married in his town.
In 1945.
In 45.
And then you went to Vienna.
Yes.
Tell me about that trip to Vienna.
You see, when we married, I didn't want to, and I got pregnant, and I didn't want to give birth to a child not to freedom, not to be in slavery. In Poland, you know, we were Friday night lighting the candle, a stone flew in through the window. That I find out that I'm pregnant. I will never give birth to a child not in freedom.
Right.
No, we decided that the only way we were going to go to Israel, the only way to go to Israel, you have to go through Germany.
Right.
Then we smuggled in the way with the bricha to our boys.
Right.
And they were carrying children, tied down the mouths and all those things because we couldn't hear anything. And here I was pregnant already and had a few schmatis and a rucksack and everything. And if somebody will tell me that you lose a baby if you're pregnant and you lift something,
yeah.
I didn't believe that couldn't happen. And at night, that brought us to Vienna. And in Vienna, they checked us into there was a hospital there. We slept on the beds there. I couldn't even climb up. And somehow we had already a little something. And they give us marks, to buy herring and bread. And
but you thought you were on your way to Israel.
Yes, we thought that, we staying here
until you get a boat.
Till we got the boat. But this was the time where the England, they didn't let in
they stopped the immigration
to Israel.
Palestine.
Mm-hmm, to Palestine.
So what happened to you?
Well, after a while, we were there, that the bricha came in and they said they're gonna take us in. They're gonna take us to Israel.
Mm-hmm.
But we found out from friends, we got a little, I still have the letter, that you can come into Palestine now. They take you to Cyprus.
Right.
Then he wrote us, he said, do you want to take your little girl to raise her on the bunk beds? Stay where you are.
So you stayed.
I stayed there.
And then you went to Hamburg.
Then we went to Hamburg.
You stayed in Hamburg for a while, didn't you?
Yeah. My daughter was born
She was
there.
born in Hamburg.
In Hamburg. And
you were in Hamburg from 1945 until 1949.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
She was born there, and when I came to the United States, she was already 3 years old.
1949.
She was the first child born in Hamburg, the first Jewish child, a little girl. And it wasn't just a big thing for us, but the whole community. There were 150 people there, Jews. A Jewish mother was born. Then they didn't kill us. You know, when there is a Jewish mother, there will be a generation.
So you finally came to the United States in September 1949.
Yeah, Morris found out that he has an uncle here in the United States.
And you both came.
But in Hamburg, she was a beautiful little girl, and I was so scared. When I brought her home, I didn't have a bed for her, so I took out a drawer and I put it on 2 chairs. I didn't want to go to sleep. For 4 weeks, I was up nights, slept half an hour. I was afraid when I get up, she's not going to be there, that everything what I loved just disappeared in one day. I left my family going to work. I never saw him again, and this will happen too. And they had a hard time. My children grew up very protected. They had to call home Mama, even the boys. They have to, if they would say to me, Sure, every time should I go over and say to my friends, I have to call my mother. I said, your father is older than that, and he calls home if he can come in time.
So how many children did you have?
I had three.
Three
The
children.
daughter,
Your daughter's name is?
Sarah,
And your son's name is?
Abe,
Abe
and Philip.
and Philip. All right. And what do they do now?
They have their business in mattress business
In Texas?
in Texas, and they do very well, and we are so close. I'm so proud of them that it's just this is what I wanted from life. They should be honest.
And your other son is in what business? He's in...
My daughter's son just graduated now from law school.
Oh, you said one of your sons is in the mattress business.
Both of them.
Oh, both of them. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
I
That
always
covers both of them.
when the
Okay.
older went to business, I said, "Hey, you have a brother.
You gotta take
That's
your
my dream. You."
Right. And your daughter's husband and your daughter, what do they do?
He was meat business, and she's a teacher. She's
And you have a number of grandchildren.
7.
That's all? 7. The last count.
Yeah, three. My daughter has the boys. My son,
Has the girls?
both of them have girls.
The last question.
No, my daughter
Yeah.
has 4 boys.
Four boys.
sons.
And the other 3, that's 7.
Yeah,
Okay.
7. I better have it right.
Yes.
Then they're not going to forgive me.
We've been talking about this yesterday. We spoke about it this morning before we started the interview. But I think it's important that you tell me now why you decided now to have this interview. Briefly, tell me why you feel it's so important.
I tell you, I have to go a little bit back. When I came to Lodge back, I was a very sick girl myself. To the concentration camp, I never lost faith in God. I said, all those evil things what's happened, people do it, because my God wouldn't. He's helpless. He can do this. He can help. Yeah. When I came after the liberation and I looked around, and my whole hope, my sister didn't come back, I got very bitter. I'm not going to, if my mother's life wasn't good enough, then look what's happened to everybody. I questioned God. How could you, you know? But deep in my heart, one day, I went to the ghetto. I didn't want to go. I didn't go. I walked there maybe for 8 hours, all by myself. Walked by, and I saw a little sign. It says, "A rabbi." I knocked in the door, and a woman came out with a little kerchief, and a lot of kids were running around with a diaper, without a diaper. And she put her head out, and she said, "Come in, my child." And when she said, "Come in, my child," like a new world, I am somebody's child. And I said, "I want to go into the rabbi." And he knew my father, because till then I didn't see anybody who knew my grandparents or he knew my father, mother, and the whole family. And he let me talk. He didn't ask me anything, but he said, "I knew them." And tell me. I said, I came here, and I'm going to tell you how I feel about God and everything what's around me. And he listened and let me talk. Then when I got through, he said to me, he says, "Mein Kind, I knew your family, and you have a right to ask questions. You have a lot of questions to ask, but you don't have a right not to believe in God. I walked out from there and didn't have where to go. Me and Eva were cleaned up a room where it was bombed. And I thought to myself, my religion really, I inherited it, and it's not mine to give it away. That's my inheritance. And I thought of all those holidays and all the beautiful things happen to life. And I wanted so badly my parents should be proud of me, especially my mom, my mother, my father, and my Bobby Miriam, who I was so close to her. And the only way to survive, I said, I'm going to pick up where Dad didn't live to finish it up. And when I start to go out with a boy, like before, he had to know, he had to have a background, who he is. Maybe not religious, but who he is and from where he comes. Yeah. That, you know, this is the way.
So this is the story you want to tell to your children and your grandchildren and hopefully
Yes.
your great-grandchildren, so they
Yes.
will see this and they'll know who their Bubby was.
Yeah, and I was human, you know, that I was got bitter of God too. And you have a right. When he said to me, I have a right, I didn't have a right so many years, and he didn't blame me for anything, but he said, you have a right, but you don't have a right not to believe in God. And sometimes one person could help so much. Yes. Because I could have easily just drift off someplace where who knows what would have happened for me, to me. And then the children were born, and I felt a very happy person. I have that God helped me. I have a lovely husband who we are for each other.
And you're married how many years now?
50 is going to be in September. And I have children who are honest, maybe not so rich, but good people. And this, I always said this what my mother and father would have, what kind of credit to them, not so much to me, but to them, because they guided me all through. I wouldn't be alive if even in the dead times they guided me to the right way.
It's been wonderful talking to you. I thank you for allowing me to come into your home and interviewing you. I wish you many, many, many good years of good health and happiness for your entire family.
Thank you. I really feel now a little lighter that it came now, and so often I dream and I think of them so much, more than when I was busy with the family. But now, while I'm getting older,
you got time to think.
Got time to think and how much I love them and how much. And they know it.
They know it.
They know it.
Thank you.
No?
June 7th, 1995, the survivors of Pearl Lang. This is tape 4. Tell us something about the gentleman sitting to your left.
It's going to be now 50 years since we are married in September. And we have a wonderful life through the years. And we raised 3 children and 7 grandchildren. And God was very good to me, and I'm the happiest woman in the world.
And I'm glad to hear that. You see, all I know is I look at my wife now, and she looks so nice and pretty. And always, in my heart, she's the most beautiful one. Sometimes she says she's short. I said, don't worry about it. All good things come in small packages. And every day I get up in the morning and I thank God that for what we went through in our lives, that I think that we have lots and lots to be thankful for.
God was good to us.
That's right. And most important thing, we didn't lose our faith in the Almighty. And we only at this time in our lives, I really pray every time for your good health, for my good health, and we should be able to enjoy each other's company for many more years to come, and also have lots of naches, enjoy from our children and grandchildren, and this is important.
And the children should have naches from us. When we are well, they're going to
if we don't give them any problems, and we pray they shouldn't give us any problems, then it's going to be good. And I'll give you a kiss for it. What else would you like to?
That's fine. Good dessert. Pearl, tell me when you received this number and where.
I had it in Auschwitz. And when?
Yeah, when? What year?
When we in 40.
41?
No.
44.
44.
Want to read the numbers? So
Yeah, and her number is A-13968. And it's this number that she has on her hand, the memoriam that they have in Miami, with the hand stretching out. Their number is only a few numbers, and the number on the hand is only a few digits different than
it
the
must
number.
be the
It
same
has the
transport.
same transport or whatever it is. It just, I don't remember exactly, but it also A13, 9, and then there's a few numbers just.
And it was done in Birkenau, really.
In Birkenau, when she arrived.
When we arrived. Yeah.
1944.
who the person is and when the picture was taken.
That's all.
Okay.
This is my sister Chaya. The picture was taken before the war.
What's her name?
Chaya. This is my daughter Sarah. And she was here.
She was born?
She was born in Germany. She's here 3 years old. This is our daughter Sarah Leah, and she was named after both mothers. That's my oldest son, Abe, and his Hebrew name is Avram Yitzchik, and he's named after both fathers.
This is our oldest son.
He is, his name is Philip, and his Hebrew name is Feivel Kalman. And he's a year old here. And he's named after, yeah, both fathers. He's named after my grandfather and my husband's uncle. Yeah.
She will not explain.
Okay.
I will.
Here in this picture we have the whole family, the grandchildren, our children, and my husband and me. Who are they? Right in the beginning is Carol and Abe. This is my oldest son with his wife. And in the back there is Andy, and that's me, Bobby Pearl. And then it's my youngest son, Philip, with his wife, Monique, and their two girls. Now on top there is my daughter's 4 boys. This is Mikey, Leo, and my son-in-law, and Ronnie, and my daughter Sarah. And oh, I missed to say the 3 girls here. I will Miriam and Jennifer and Lenora. This is it. Oh, my husband is there too, someplace. That's me. That's me and my husband, Mars. How many years? Maybe 5 years ago.